So now that you have a brief introduction to how mixins work, I want to add a little bit to what we've talked about. As you know, when you want to declare a mixin, you use the @mixin directive, you give your mixin a name, and then you put the declarations that you want to include. Then to actually use the mixin, you use the @include directive and call the name of the mixin, and you can pass on additional declarations if you want. You can see that this is the CSS that would be produced with this particular bit of code. We still are just repeating properties in each declaration. You might be thinking that, isn't it just more efficient to just use regular old CSS? We could write something that was similar to what I just showed you by using a group selector and then specifying the alternate color for button 2 in this case. And why would we need to use mixins if this is the case? Well, with mixins, you can use something called arguments. And arguments are where you can create the mixin, but you can pass on values that would be altered depending on the use. So here I have a mixin called button. I'm passing on an argument called color, and you can see how it kind of looks like a variable. I'm going to define all of the things that I want, and then I'll pass on the use of the color argument for background color. When I go ahead and use these, I'm going to use @include button, which will include the border size, the font size, and the text transform, as well as the background color. But for button 1, the background color would be orange, and for button 2, it would be yellow. This is going to give you a lot more flexibility when you're creating your mixins. Let's go ahead and look at this in practice. Here's the page that we're going to be working on. So it's a pretty simple page. I have 3 boxes, and we're going to be using mixins on the 3 boxes. The code for this is pretty straightforward. This is my HTML. I just have 3 divs that have classes of box and an appropriate number for each box. I've already separated my SASS out into the various items that I'm going to need. You're already familiar with the reset. I'm using the same one that we used in previous lectures. Here are the variables that I'm using. So these variables are pretty much just defining some various things for the page, and then I have some primary, secondary, and neutral color declarations that I'm including as well. In my base directory, I have included the SASS for the main elements on the page, and these are just using some of the variables that we saw in the variable file and styling the various items that are on my page. Finally, I've created a new SASS file in my modules directory, and this is called _box. It's a partial, and you can see that I'm defining information about these boxes. So I have box 1, 2, and 3. Now, it is worth noting that I am using a lot of variables here, so if you are confused as to what these variables are, check out the variables, and you can see that I have box size of 80 pixels. If we go back to the box file, you can see that I'm using this box sizing as well as medium spacing, and then some of my color items here as well. As I mentioned, we're going to change this page a little bit, and we're going to create a mixin. So I'm going to create all of the mixin related files in this particular file because I think it'll be easier for you just to see it here. Normally, I would probably break my mixins into a separate mixin directory, and I would put that in my global folder. But just for the sake of keeping things a little bit more consolidated, I'm going to do it all within this box file. So I'm going to start out by typing @mixin, and we'll go ahead and we'll give this a name of box style. And then I'm going to grab some of these different elements. So I'm going to specify the width, and we can use our variable. I'll just do that for width and height, as well as padding, margin. Let me just actually copy all of these things. So I'm going to copy everything that has to do with our box, except for the background color. So we'll leave the background color here. We'll get rid of all of these, and we'll use our @include directive, and I'm going to use this on each of the 3 boxes. So obviously this is consolidating my code down. So when we look at these, they should be square. They're not quite square. I must have something wrong with my code. Let's go back and check it out. Oh, I see what the problem is. I wrote WW for width. So let me just delete that, and I'll save. And then we'll refresh, and now they are squared out. All right, perfect. So we can see that our mixin is working. But what I want to show you is how we can make the mixin a little bit more robust. All right, so let's go ahead now and let's move the background color into the Mixin. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my background color declaration, and we're going to specify that the background color be equal to, and we'll call it BCLR for box color. So I'm going to pass this on. Now, in order to use the argument as the background color, I also need to pass it on when I declare the Mixin. So after box style, I'm going to open up parentheses. I'm going to use the $sign, and I'm using the same exact word or spelling of the code. So in this case, it's just BCLR. This is letting the Mixin know that this will take as an argument. Now that we have that, we're going to get rid of the background color on all of the boxes. And we're going to make the background color on the boxes look different by passing on a color value. So after I have the name, add include, and box style, the name of the Mixin, I'm going to pass on the value for the color for each particular box. And we do that by simply opening our parentheses and passing on a color. And just to keep things simple, I'm just going to use keyword colors here. So I'll use blue, yellow, and orange for the last one. All right, if we save and we go refresh in the page, you can see how now each of the boxes is being colored by those new colors. So in this way, these three items are sharing all of these properties that we created in our Mixin, and then we're able to selectively control certain values for some of the properties. And in this case, we chose to do that with background color. This is a great way that you can use Mixins in your project and allow to have them be a little bit more flexible.